to journey through the Innerverse. Here we are with the dark moon dream reflections for Scorpio new moon. So excited. How are you feeling tonight, Alexis?
Tonight, I'm feeling actually pretty amazing. Which is hilarious because the last several weeks have been an absolute nightmare for me. And I just once Mercury retrograde actually began, it was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders, and I feel amazing. I even got a haircut like a couple days into Mercury retrograde, and like I know that's not something you're supposed to do, but the weight is lifted off my shoulders and I feel lighter and just like more open to receiving. So I feel amazing. How are you?
I feel similarly. Yeah, the past couple weeks, I would say early November was pretty intense, specifically because of the dream space. And I'll share, of course, that experience. But I also did some shedding with my hair. As you guys can see, I cut bangs, and I've also I'm kind of blending in with my sweater, but my hair is a little bit shorter because I'll be, straight up and honest. I am in this season of like anxious cutting. Like I would say the end of October into early November, I found myself just like, how you have like the split ends, and that's kind of when I'm stressed, and I don't know, it just gives me a sense of control, I guess, which is like what led me also to cutting my bangs. And I think also I needed a fresh look, which makes sense as we've talked about. We're both Scorpio risings. The sun's moving through Scorpio, our first house. And we also have Mercury retrograde just moved back into Scorpio. Venus is also in Scorpio. And as we're speaking, the moon is in Scorpio too. So there's a lot of energy into Scorpio. And I'm wondering, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel that um Venus in Scorpio probably had some sort of major influence on both of us, changing up or like freshening up our physical appearance. Like you can't make that up.
No,
Um,
you
so
can.
yeah, I think that it has helped a lot. And so I feel really good in this moment. And, I was feeling tired about an hour ago, but then after like talking with Alexis and getting prepared for this and future episodes, I am rejuvenated. So here we are.
Yeah, I have to say, I love your hair. I think it looks adorable. You look incredible. And there's got to be something with Venus in Scorpio, just everything kind of in Scorpio right now. Not obviously not everything, but a lot of things in Scorpio right now. Because I have to say, like, I don't usually feel very like womanly. I kind of feel like just a human blob drifting through life. But during the Scorpio season, I feel very strongly like that woman energy, like that powerful, strong, beautiful, like woman energy coming through. And I love this season. I
I love
love
it.
this season. And I do have to say, like we talked about a little earlier, I feel like it went by like a flash.
Yeah.
And I'm not ready to let it go.
Yeah. And, I just kind of quickly looked at the transits right now, and pretty much all the other planets except like Venus and Mars are retrograde. Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus. Um, who am I forgetting? Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus. Pluto's not retrograde, but
No,
nonetheless,
it
yeah,
just went direct like 2 weeks ago
yeah,
or
it just
something
went
like
direct, right? And so, yeah, this is like, I feel like the point of me saying that is that there's such an emphasis on Scorpio. And I feel that, Scorpio generally is like a private energy, a private type sign. However, with everything else almost like muted with the retrograde, like it's all turned inward. It's like the energy that is present within Scorpio is very like dominant. And even Mars isn't, retrograde, but Mars is, the traditional ruler of Scorpio. It's in Sag. And so I feel like that's bringing out more of the Scorpio energy now. And with everything else kind of muted or more internally focused is in alignment with Scorpio energy, where it's like we're going in the depths of ourselves. And so that energy, that darkness has come to the surface. And I'm sure for a lot of you, you know, this might be a time where you're really starting to have like those realizations, right? And I feel, you know, at the beginning of Scorpio season, probably the end of Libra season too, there was so much like you could feel the turbulence almost, like maybe that inner conflict. And now it's like I feel that we're grasping a hold of like we just have a stronger foundation, right? And now we are growing forward from there. So we'll
The
be
inner
talking
depths,
about
a
this.
hundred
Yeah.
percent. The inner depths of the self is exactly what I've been feeling. It's just like you're peeling back layer by layer, whether it's voluntary or involuntary during this season, and just facing a lot. So yeah, I'm definitely feeling that right now.
Yeah. So Mary's here in the chat. Mary says howdy. Hi,
Hey
Mary.
Mary.
Also, Jackie's here. Hi, Jackie. Thanks
Hi
for being
Jackie.
here again. Yeah, so let us know in the comments if you desire how your dream space has been, or how, you know, even your waking space and how that comes together, how that's been for you if you're already experiencing the aha moments. One of the things I'll also add before we just share a couple announcements is that with this new moon, so as we're recording on Wednesday night, November 19th, the new moon is going to happen around like 1:47, 1:45 a.m. Eastern time. And then shortly, or just under 3 hours after that, we have Mercury Cazimi. Mercury's retrograde. The Mercury Cazimi is in Scorpio. And what the Cazimi means essentially is that Mercury is in the heart of the sun. And so the ancient Greeks perceived this to be an auspicious moment in which you may receive divine messages that will bring forth healing, blessings, and good fortune in your life. And so I'm really looking forward to this because it's going to be happening while we're asleep. Like if you are in the United States, most likely you're going to be asleep with the Kazemi at least. And so this is a really good time. And, you know, those of you that are tuning in live, you know, you're getting this insight. And I mean, some of you, I'm sure, already know of this alignment, but this is a good time to set an intention for your dreaming space. And of course, you can do this any night, but this is going to be a more profound evening to do so, especially if you have Scorpio placements. And so with everything retrograde too, is just there's just so many synchronicities and so much emphasis on, you know, turning your perspective and your focus inward for that guidance from your most, you know, quietest self, your inner self, your higher wisdom in that sense. So I'm really looking forward to doing that tonight.
I'm so excited for the dream space tonight. I have a feeling that we're gonna get some pretty interesting messages come through. I'm expecting intensity, but you don't know what's going to happen. But I'm just so excited. I know that it's going to be an influence.
Yeah. Also, I should add too that Black Moon Lilith is another energy that is present in the dream space. And, you know, I'm still kind of learning about Black Moon Lilith. I'm kind of learning from experience. So I don't really have a lot to share on that, but I just wanted to point that out too, that, you know, I know Lilith in her, like in the essence of who or what she represents is the dark feminine, the shadow, personal empowerment. Also, there's an element of sexuality, reclamation of sexuality and power, personal power, and so forth. And definitely that dark feminine. So maybe the shadow aspects within your feminine essence are coming to light. And specifically, if you have Scorpio placements, it's going to really emphasize the shadow within those placements, right? And so that's something to take note of too, that she's right there in the midst of all this energy. So
It's funny you mentioned that because I had said that I really feel like that strong, powerful, magical, womanly power coming through. The Black Moon Lilith is 2 degrees from my Pluto in Scorpio.
yeah.
So I feel like that's definitely playing an influence on my
You mean
feeling.
right in transit or in your birth chart?
in the transit. So the
Okay.
current transiting Black Moon Lilith is 2 degrees from my natal Pluto.
Yeah.
So it's at 26 degrees. My Pluto's at 28. It's right there. Like, I'm interested to see how that's going to be when it lines up, because I don't feel this often. So when I do, it's like,
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
mm-hmm,
Yeah. And I just, so when I just looked at the chart, she's like sandwiched right now at this moment in between the sun and moon. So
mm-hmm.
that's really interesting. So maybe that's why I felt the need to like mention that, because it's like, don't forget about me. I'm right here too. And like the energy, it's a dark moon. And so I just feel like the darkness, the dark womb, like the dark feminine being so like dominant with this moon and for the incoming cycle. So that's something that we want to be aware of, right? Because this is setting the tone for the next 28 days. And I'm really
Yep.
excited because I'm like, I feel good.
I know, I feel really good, and like I
So
don't
I'm
want to let go of
excited.
that.
Yeah.
Especially with like the last like several weeks prior. Like I would say the last 2 weeks prior to Mercury retrograde, my life felt like it was being torn apart. And it was just like internally, like, and externally, because it was very physical, and it started around the Taurus full moon, and it was very physical, like sensation wise. Like I've mentioned this before, like I wanted to rip my nails and my hair out and my skin off, and it was a whole thing. So like now that I'm getting into this feeling of like taking my power back, feeling comfortable in myself again, but also on top of that, feeling that very strong, like magical, dark feminine. Oh, like I feel like I could do anything. I love that energy.
Yeah. So before we get deep into the energy of the previous cycle and coming into this new cycle, we have a few announcements to share tonight. Do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. So Urania and I are both dream experts on a developing dream app called Dreamigos. This is a wonderful app where you have a place to record in multiple ways your dreams and keep them private, or you have the opportunity to put them on the community Dreamline, where you can get guidance and interpretation from the 7 dream experts on the app. This is an app you can find on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. And there's just so many wonderful things that you can get with it. Like I just love it so much. It's a container for my dreams, and the community is fantastic.
Yeah. No, we've made a lot of really amazing connections through the app, and also just outside of the dream, like outside of the app, we've still made bridge that dream circle or dream community. And then we start seeing them come to the app and then also come to the dream circle. And so every month we have a free dream circle that we host through the app. And this next circle essentially is December 2nd, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And it's going to be centered around nightmares, stress dreams, anxious dreams. And Alexis and I will be hosting it with Andrea. Andrea Morrison is another dream expert in the app. And she was on our previous episode in which we talked about lucid living and bridging the dreaming space with the waking space and how they're reflections of one another. So the three of us will be facilitating this dream circle. And so if you have any questions or experiences with nightmares, stressful sleeping, anxious dreams, definitely come to this circle. It's going to be really a lot of fun, actually. I feel like we're going to shed a lot of light on, this specific topic and these types of dreams. And this is a place where you can come for support, is say if you've been having recurring nightmares and you're not really sure how to, like, what they mean or how to navigate it and so forth. This is a perfect opportunity to sit in community virtually, of course. It's going to be online virtually, and just share, your experiences and get some insight. So if you're interested, again, it's free, and I put the link to register for the Dream Circle in the description of this video. And also, if you want to download Dreamigos app, check it out, which is also free. You can do so. The link is in the description of this video, and it'll give you access to the website, which has the link to either the Apple Store, Apple App Store, or the Google Play Store.
Yeah, and this is a really great time for talking about nightmares and anxious dreams because we're in the midst of holiday season. So there's a variety of feelings that come up around being around family, but also we're stepping into the liminal space of winter. And
Mm.
that can bring up a lot of, internal issues and uncover wounds that need to be healed. There's a lot going on in this season. So nightmares and anxious dreams is definitely a topic that would be um very, what's the word I'm looking for? It would just be a good time to learn
Yeah.
about it.
Especially in, I feel, help in preparation for all of that. Because
Preparation,
as we've
yes.
talked about with the reflections of the dreaming and the waking, it's like if you're this is a busy time of the year, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of expectations, and it's likely that your dreaming space will reflect that. And so, we'll also talk about how to like navigate that, maybe with herbs or different practices, or what happens if you have this kind of dream and what it might mean. And I think having this conversation like before the holidays really like start to come in full effect is going to be very beneficial and supportive in advance. So this is definitely one that you don't want to miss if you are very curious about this specific topic of dreams.
Absolutely. And if there's any, like, if you guys ever have any nightmares or anxious dreams that you just need someone to look at and talk through it with you, feel free to email us at the Innerverse podcast at gmail.com. We're always open to checking out your dreams and discussing it with them, with you.
Absolutely. Awesome. Okay, so let's jump into our conversation for Dark Moon Dream Reflections, Scorpio New Moon Edition. And yeah, this is tends to be a very casual conversation. Alexis and I are just going to share of how the dream space has been over the past lunar cycle, what to essentially expect for the incoming cycle, which is starting with this Scorpio energy, and then we're going to wrap it up with some oracle readings for tonight. So I just want to reflect on the previous cycle, which I mean, this is a whole reflection of the previous cycle, right? So that cycle began 28 days prior to today. I don't have the actual date, but I can look it up.
Late October.
But yeah, it was with the Libra new moon, right? So it was right, I think it was literally the day before the Scorpio season started, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I love actually when this happens where we're in the solar season, but then the lunar cycle is different, right? So yes, we have been in Scorpio season, but the lunar cycle was actually initiated with the Libra new moon. And so that Libra new moon occurred on October 21st. Yes. And then Scorpio season was started October 22nd.
Yep.
So think about, reflect on your dreaming space from October 21st up until now, essentially. And the themes in general, for just to keep it really, really general for Libra season or Libra lunar cycle, is essentially bringing yourself into balance. And, we didn't really plan this, but I love that our last two episodes kind of focus on that, like focus on the duality of the dreaming and the waking space, but then how they come together, like bridging those two, what may seem like extremes, bridging them together because ultimately they are reflections of one another. And that really speaks to Libra energy. And so with Libra, there is like this desire to bring the energies into balance, bring it into harmony. And generally, with the Libra archetype or people that have strong Libra, they tend to, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Alexis, because you got a lot of Libra. They tend to experience the extremes, like, like they're seeking to find balance, right? Like then they will master it. Like it's a natural gift, so to speak, but they're learning through the extremes or getting the different perspectives and trying to like make peace of it all and find that center. And so it's likely that you may have experienced that in your dreaming space. And hopefully now at this time, like you're starting to really understand like the center of it all, or maybe you're making peace with what you've experienced over the past 28 days, and that peace and that like understanding really brings you into a deeper union with yourself, or you and your dreaming self. So what are your thoughts on that, Alexis?
I agree completely. I mean, and it's a lot of internal work. It's not like I'm experiencing the extremes externally, really. It's more so internally. And it's with everything. Like everything is a constant balancing act, trying to figure out the weight of each thing. And like you go through life making decisions based on what you predict will happen down the line and like what will be the best outcome for you, for the people around you. And this past cycle has been such an interesting one. From the Libra new moon to this Scorpio new moon that'll be happening tonight or tomorrow morning, essentially. For me, I've been experiencing lesson after lesson after lesson
Mm-hmm.
very intensely. And it's been really healing. Like I feel like within the last cycle, I have shed my skin over and over and over and again. And now I'm at this point and I feel like a new person. And it even started like talking about in the beginning of this episode how I was feeling that very physical sense of needing to shed my skin and not really recognizing it as that, but more so like uncomfortable with where I was. I think it was a representation of me shedding my skin because now I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, here are all the lessons that are lined up from that new moon to this new moon, and it makes a lot of sense what I went through in this last month. But I agree completely with that, and yeah. So, how has your dream space been the last
Oh my goodness.
cycle?
So I think it was like right after, no, yeah, maybe right after we had our dark moon dream reflections, I started having some really like profound dreams. And at the beginning of November, essentially, I started having recurring dreams involving dogs. And I'll also say, so like actually before that, right? Like after the dark moon dream reflections, and I feel like around that time in general, like my dream recall was fine, but I just struggled with recording them. Like I just
Yeah.
couldn't, it wasn't a priority, right? And then I started having the series of dreams with the recurring dogs. And so then that got me back into recording my dreams, pretty regularly because I was having them back to back. And it was just like, when you start having recurring symbols and they provoke so much emotion because they were very anxious dreams, like you want to write them down. Like if you do the dream work consistently, if this is something that really you follow and practice, like those are the dreams, like you're like, oh my goodness, okay, I need to get to the bottom of this. Because when you have recurring symbols, it's like there's something that you're not getting, especially when they're anxious or they're nightmares. Like it's like you're not seeing this, like, and it's like, not necessarily like alarm, it can be, but it's more so like, hey, like this is the time to pay attention. I'm at a place where I know I was at a place when they initially started, essentially, of stagnancy, or I had been, because this recurring dream symbol actually started in March, the end of March 2025. And it was the week of the eclipse that we had in Aries, the solar eclipse. So it was like right around that time. And every so often I would have a dream with the dog in it, but it didn't really like stand out to me until recently. And now I'm understanding that I was at basically a threshold, like a breaking point of where I was so close to realizing the message and taking the action, that the dreams were just like, I mean, it was so obvious. And it was just like an alarm for me personally, like, okay, I need to pay attention to this. I need to really integrate it, and I need to act on whatever's coming through. And so honestly, I'm still in the midst of that, but I'm on the other side. Like I've already seen the evolution of, or the dream taking, like evolving basically. Um,
Right.
something more opening, something more transform. Well, the whole experience is transformative, but more so like I'm at a point where I'm about to move through the threshold. Like I'm about to overcome, the fear and, act on this guidance. So that's
Wow.
kind of, I mean, I'm gonna go deeper, but that's where we're at. That's where we're starting with. And there's so many different layers. But also, how's your dream space? I know you shared a little bit, but do you have dreams to share tonight? Like
I
specifically in
do. I
okay.
do have dreams to share, and I love that for you've been getting this constant message. Because for me, for my dream space last cycle, it has been a different lesson every single dream. Every single dream I've had has been a different lesson. It's touching on something different. And it feels overwhelming in that sense of like, it's just one thing after the next after the next. But I feel like what you're experiencing can feel very overwhelming too, because it's the same thing continuously popping up and trying to navigate like the depths of that one thing.
Mhm.
And that being said, when I tell you that it has been a different lesson in every dream that has been significant in the last cycle, it has been a different lesson in every dream that I've had that's been significant in this cycle. And it's very eye opening. And I think that where I was talking about that physical sensation in the waking space, I think that I might have had that be so intense because of how many different lessons that I was experiencing. I like the more I think about this, I know I've talked about this like a lot, but I feel like that experience was a physical representation of what I was going through mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, which was like multiple layers of shedding skin and not being able to understand it in the moment and feeling it all physically rather than like acknowledging it for what it was. So I have a variety of different dreams that I'm going to share, not too long,
Mhm.
um, but just to give an idea of what these lessons have been, and so you can see how different they really are.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so I don't know if you want me to
Yeah.
share one and go from there.
Mhm.
Okay, all right. So
Yeah.
the first one I'm going to share, I had November 5th, and this was a powerful dream for me. So essentially, I was in an apartment building. I was living in an apartment building. And on the top floor of this apartment building was someone that I had a friendship ending with a couple years ago. And I had been sneaking up to this apartment and putting little things in the door to kind of like um, help them in one way or the next. So trying to show up for them without actually like without them actually acknowledging that I'm showing up, keeping it like a secret. And finally, one of the times I had gone up to like drop something off at the door, I had been let in by another older woman who had been living in the apartment with them. And my presence was known. It was not a smooth transition. The person that I had ended the friendship with was very angry and very physical, like trying to get physically violent with me. And I remember at one point, like she tried to essentially attack me, and I had pushed her with all of my force to the ground. And while she was on the ground looking up at me, I was essentially like, "You need to stop. You did this. I
Oh.
gave everything I could to you. I was there for you
Mm.
whenever you needed me. And you pushed me away. You created this. You
Mm.
need to stop." And the look in their eyes was just of understanding of their mistakes and
Mm.
understanding where I stood. And I woke up from that dream feeling a sense of empowerment because when you are experiencing a breakup from a friendship, it's very complex. There's a lot. It's just like a like being in a relationship with someone.
Mhm.
That separation is intense, and you go through so many different processes of grieving. And especially if you're in a relationship with someone where you feel like they dominated the space.
Mhm.
This dream was me having domination in a space where I never did. And it felt empowering, and I feel like I moved forward.
Mm.
So that is one example of just like a lesson that I needed to encounter. I needed to have the problem needed to be solved within this subconscious space where I had the freedom to be physical in the way I needed to and to express my voice in the way I needed to, where I never have before and probably will never have again in the waking space, I'm sure. So yeah, that was definitely one of the dreams that I felt like kick-started
Mm.
the lessons coming through.
So I'm already seeing like parallels of our dreams this cycle. And it's interesting because it's Libra lunar cycle, also with the sun in Scorpio. But I'm like feeling the extreme aspects of Libra, but I'm feeling like when you mentioned well, I wrote anger, empowerment, just like speaking your truth, and like that being also like that's worked out through the dreams because you didn't have the opportunity. And even if you did, I can't see you like yelling at someone like that. Like I don't know, I can't see you doing that in person. So it's happening in the dream. And I love how you mentioned there's multiple lessons, that like different lessons in this period. And so the way in which that's related to the dreams that I have. So I had actually a dream at the beginning of November as well. Like that started with the dog dreams. And so the dog dreams, um, the dogs essentially in most of the dreams up until like the probably the most recent one and maybe the one before that, the dogs are very aggressive towards me. And so I'm just scrolling here online to see my dream journal. Oh, maybe I didn't put that one here. Okay, the earlier one. But nonetheless, so this is why like the journaling, my dreams are all over the place right now. But nonetheless, the point that I want to get to is that one of the realizations that came through my dreams, because the dogs were very aggressive towards me. They never bit me, they never attacked me, but they were just like barking, snarling, all of that, right? And which drove up a lot of fear and anxiety. And I had like I've been talking about my dreams with several people. So, and I've been getting multiple, there's multiple angles. Also, I've had in the dreams a lot of the times like the breeds, there's multiple breeds in one dream. There could be like a bulldog, a Doberman Pinscher, like, a wolf, like so these dogs I'm getting a sense also can represent many different things going on at once. But what came to my realization, like from a psychological perspective, is that like I was also told that the dogs represent me. Like look at the dog, or I was encouraged to look at the dogs as like I'm the dog. I am
Mm-hmm.
being like, that's me getting out that anger, that aggression. Like I'm not doing anything, but it's like actively, and that's one of the emotions that I repress. That is really hard
Yeah.
is anger. Like I feel incredibly uncomfortable with it. I don't like being angry and mean to people because it just feels icky. Like it
Yeah.
feels good in the moment, but it's just like, oh, it doesn't really make me any better than that person.
No.
And so I do my best to find other ways to get it out. But honestly, I don't even honestly properly know how to channel that. That's something that I'm working on. And so looking at it from that angle, I was like, that makes so much sense. Because even in my waking life, like there are some people that I'm like angry with. And it's like I don't really know how to approach it. Especially because with one of them I'm thinking about, which is my brother, and I've like reached out to him about a situation, and I said it in the most kindest way, because it was funny. I was going to go in like angry and sending a messed up text, and then I like told myself, okay, no, wait, let's send this in a better way. Like let's be kind. And so I sent like a very kind text message, and I got nothing. This was like 2 months, like longer than 2 months, right? Because I was going home to visit my
Yeah.
mother, and my mother, my brother mentioned it to my mother, and she said that, oh, like he didn't really know how to respond, and he's going to talk to you in person when you're here. I was only in person, I was only at home for like a weekend, and I was
Yeah.
visiting the weekend. So I was like, he's probably not going to have time to talk to me. And did he come to my mother's? No. Have I heard from him since then? No. This was at the beginning of September. And then like a week or so ago, I sent like just a funny reel or something on Instagram just to break the ice, and nothing. Like he didn't even check it. He's been on Instagram. He didn't even check it. So and like my mom will talk to me about him, just like random stuff. Oh, your brother's doing this or whatever. And I don't know how to handle it. I'm so freaking pissed off. And so like I can totally see myself as the dogs, like that anger, that feeling like my power, because that's, anger in itself is like, it's a response to disempowerment, feeling like you don't, like you lost your power or you need to reclaim
Yeah.
it, right? And so I'm like, wow, that was kind of like, I didn't even think about it to look at it in that way. So anyways, I see that similarity between our dreams, which, with Scorpio, Pluto, Mars, even, there's the power dynamics. That's big. Um,
Absolutely.
and so I definitely see that coming, like I see that as a theme.
I love this parallel, and I don't love it for us in the waking space, because I know that there's some things that need to be nipped in the bud. There's some things that need to be confronted and moved through. But I also love that within the dreaming space, it provides a container for it. It
Mm-hmm.
provides an outlet, because I feel the same way. I'm very uncomfortable with being like expressing my anger. Like I feel like I don't have space to express my anger, And with this person, like if they made me upset and angry, I let everything go, because I was more nervous about the way they would react to me bringing up the confrontation than I was about my own self preservation. And so to be able to, within the dream space, stand up for myself in a way that I hadn't before, and the way that, in a way, these dogs are representing your anger coming through in a way that you don't often let yourself let it come through, it feels very healthy.
Yeah.
And like I know that those confrontations still need to be made in the waking space, but it almost is a preparation for
Mm-hmm.
what's to come. Again, I don't know if I'll ever have the opportunity to have that expression in the waking space. And
Yeah.
I'm okay if I don't. It's one of those things where I've moved on, and just having that experience, because when you're lucid in the dream space, it doesn't feel that different from being in the waking space. So it was a very cathartic feeling for me to like stand up and be like, look, I didn't do this. You did this. You made this uncomfortable. You set this up. You didn't accept the hey, let's work to set up better boundaries. Let's work on this. Let's work on that. You wanted to end it because you couldn't handle taking accountability for what you did. This was your fault. This is your doing. And for me to be able to just express that, it just brought a empowerment to myself that I hadn't had before. And I often I know it's common with Libras, like we don't like confrontation. And it's true, because I think that there's more civil ways to go about things. Like I let things slide because I'm like, we're human. We make mistakes. I'm not going to hold this against you. I'm not going to like put you on the fire because of some small mistake you made. But once it starts to add up and I start to be taken advantage of and I start to be treated poorly more and more often, it comes to a point where like I do need to step up and have that confrontation. I can't just let things go because it doesn't allow an understanding of what I deserve. I'm not speaking for me. I'm not holding space for me in a relationship. I need to say, "Hey, this is what I need. Either you're going to work with me and we're going to make it better, or I'm not going to include you in my space because you're not respecting my boundaries." But, in the past, I really just continuously let things go. And it was scarier for me to put up boundaries than it was to respect myself. So just having that opportunity in my dream space to do that, it really was cathartic. It really was healing. And I've really grown into myself more because of that. But
I remember talking to you after, like, that morning, or like, yeah, like the day after you had the dream and you were sharing it with me. And like, yeah, I felt the lightness. And I was like, oh wow, you literally did work that out, like in your dream space. Like, I'm gonna have to have the conversation, which is funny. I've been been like kind of just not reflecting, but contemplating how I want to go about it. Cause a part of me just wants to be like, oh, you're gonna ignore me. Like, my brother and I were like best friends. Like, we've
yeah,
never any kind of like weird stuff or like falling out. So this is like a big deal. And the fact that, like, and I, like you said, you understand, like, people are human, and like we grew up in the same household. So I understand, like, for us, emotions, like especially these kind of emotions, are just like, we're not an emotionally expressive family.
yeah.
And so I know where he's at on some levels. And so I understand, but a part of me just was like, you're really going to ignore me? Like, I mean, I'm already pissed about what was said and your perspective, your perception
Mhm.
of me or whatever. But now you're going to ignore me even, and you talk to my mom about, oh wow, I didn't realize I really hurt her feelings. And like, so,
Yeah,
also
so why
that you
wouldn't
kind
you
of,
bring it up?
I'm just like, what do you think? Like, me. Like, it's so weird. And so, anyways, I'm going to have the conversation, but there's another person that I not going to go there with, really. And I was guided to, which is a practice that I've known about, but I was guided to write a letter to them.
I
Um,
love letters, by the
and
way. Just
so
not to cut you off, but when you're in a situation and you feel like you need to say your piece, but you can't, writing letters are one of the most healthy things you can do.
yeah,
Even if you don't send it, you burn it, whatever you do with
yeah, 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 definitely not going to send it, but
it.
but yeah, so that's a common theme, right? So, and I know that Mary and Jackie, both of you are here. Both of you are Scorpios, and I'm sure you have other Scorpio placements too. I'm curious, like, if any of these like themes have shown up, in your dreams, or maybe there's something like that going on in your waking space where you're not really expressing yourself in your full power, and maybe that's been reflected in your dreams. And also, those of you who are watching either live or the replay and you want to chime in, we would love to hear, because this was unexpected. I wasn't, like, even knowing how the cycle's been, now that we're sitting here having a conversation, I'm like, wait a minute, this is interesting. Like, this is a synchronicity.
It's so interesting. It's so interesting the way things come through when we're actually having the conversation.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if there was dreams you wanted to share more in depth with. I have um, three more. One is like just a blip. Two
Mhm.
others are a little longer, but yeah.
I'll see how, well, let me ask you this, because then maybe I'll complete my dream with how it evolved. But I'm curious. So the dreams that you're going to share, do you feel that they reflected an evolution of how your cycle started? Um,
Absolutely. I mean, and when I tell you they were completely different lessons, they were completely different lessons.
mhm.
Completely different lessons. I mean, I haven't had this many come through so differently.
Mhm.
but I love it. Like even the more difficult ones where like there may have been some anxiety coming through, I understand what the lesson was and like the way it moved with my waking space, the way it reflected my waking space. And I feel like, especially now that like, so tonight and tomorrow morning is the new moon. What is going to come from Scorpio new moon to Sag new moon, I feel like is going to be even more revolutionary, even more insightful. So
Mhm.
like I'm so excited.
Okay, well, keep going. Share
Okay.
a small one, and we'll see what.
Okay, so the second lesson I'm going to share occurred on November 10th. So this was interesting because it was actually a reoccurring location in my dream space. I had been to this dream space before, which was like an on-campus bakery slash cafe. And in a previous dream, I had gone to the cafe briefly and went to the antique store next door and walked around the campus a little bit. But in this dream, I was in the car with my family. My sister wanted to get a pastry and a coffee. I had mentioned this dream cafe that I had been to before, and we started driving to it. And as we're driving, she's continuously calling the place and they're not picking up. So finally, we get to like the threshold of this location and they answer and essentially say that they've closed. But on the outskirts of this threshold, like right at the entrance point, there is a two older women, kind of like crones, with two horses that are kind of like special in their development. And so we didn't get upset about the bakery closed. We just kind of like went with, okay, there are some horses. Let's sit here, talk to the women. They were giving some insightful information while we were petting the horses. And then I was kind of pulled out of that and put into a street. And it was kind of at night, and there was these two guys who were standing outside of their vehicle, and I had entered my art into their gallery, and the one man pulled out my art and the other one essentially was like, like your art is kind of meh, it doesn't really have any depth to it, like I don't feel comfortable showing this in my gallery, and kind of just went down an insult list. And to me, that really reflected a space where I had just had an art show. I was just feeling really good about myself. And then I hit a plateau and I started feeling really bad about the way that I do art. And, you know, essentially, like comparison is the thief of joy. And I felt like I was getting to a point around this dream where I was comparing myself to other people and other people's level of art. And it was making me hate myself. And
Mhm.
this, at this moment within this dream, like when I woke up, I was like, okay, I see what I'm doing here. Like I'm taking away my enjoyment and my love for what I do by putting myself down in comparison, comparing myself to other people. And it's putting me in a slump and it's not allowing myself to have open creativity. And that's something that I need desperately in order to feel true to myself. And I, since that dream, I have been working on small projects to help me connect deeper with myself.
Mhm.
So that's definitely a lesson that came through. Um, I don't even know what day the 10th was on, but I know that that was a shift in my perspective of how
Well, the
I.
day before the 11/11 portal.
Oh, the eleven
Yeah.
eleven portal.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
was pretty. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say the that makes a lot of sense, especially because I just it was an opportunity for me to walk through that threshold with a new perspective and new inspiration based on like my, because those two men in my dreams, specifically the one who was tearing me down, was a reflection of my own self tearing me down.
Hmm.
Like, why am I doing that? Why am I taking the time to insult myself, to bring myself down from a level where I felt really good and
Yeah.
bring me right down to the floor? and stop me from being in tune with my own self, my own creativity, my own zen. Because when you create art, you are in a state of zen. It's kind of like that in between of being awake and asleep. Like you're just, everything's flowing so naturally.
Mhm.
So it felt very unnatural for me to be so harsh.
Right. Yeah, no, I remember when you shared that dream, and I mean, I that was like your interpretation. Like, I don't think I had anything to say. Just kind of like right now, where I'm like, yeah, that was pretty straightforward.
Very straightforward.
Yeah, and it was just like, but in the dream, didn't you respond to them like? Wait, how did you respond to them in the dream? Was it like, were you standing up for yourself again, or you
I
kind of
don't
just?
think I was standing up for myself. I think I kind of was just taking my art back. Like
Oh,
they had, because I had given them the physical copy and then they tore it apart, and I kind of was just like taking
yeah.
it back and like moving on.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, so I had a dream on November 10th too, and it was surprise, surprise involving dogs. Um, and this one I still honestly I don't really I need to sit with it a little bit longer, but what I will say is that the feeling and the theme that I had that started to carry on as these dog symbols kept coming forth was that I was protected. Like I felt like so basically in this dream, um, I was filming like a movie or a show or something. I think it was a movie. And my daughter was with me, and we were in the like we ended up going outside, and it was like a kind of like a courtyard, like field type area though. And it was just like it was known we were having a meeting. Like everyone that was working on the film was having a meeting. And but then we were kind of like breaking, like there wasn't really any organization. And I remember like at some point Sidori, my daughter, was not with me, and there were like two security guards, and they had each of them had a dog, and they were basically kind of like observing how well the dog was trained. So the dog was like running up to people, like wanting to chase them, wanting to bark, acting aggressive. And then right when it got to the precipice of like, oh shit, like the security guard would like rein them in and see if they listen, and they always listen. But there was one in particular that was like really like on me. And then of course I started thinking about my daughter, and I'm like, oh shoot, like where is she, in the crowd? I find her, I pick her up so she's safe. And then the dog, and then the security guard like had the dog at this point and was like walking by me. And the security guard walks by, and he says to Sidori, your mom be walking around here looking so sexy. I put on my finest clothes, so I'm looking all nice for her. Like this is what I wrote. I remember this. And
My
then
God.
yeah, it was weird. And then after that, like another actor came, like there were like people started like hitting on me, like flirting with me. It was so like out of pocket for the dream. I just like really didn't understand. um and but it was interesting. I feel like that part of the dream kind of took a turn because it was really anxious with the dogs. But then it was like, the security guard had my back. And actually, now I'm thinking about it, the security guard energy kind of also was in the next dream that I had, like a little less than a week later. And so, but there was this feeling of like, you're protected,
Yes.
yeah, like they're not going to get you, like you're protected. So that was, a little bit of what I experienced. And that was right. That was also the day before 11/11. So, I really took
That is
that.
such an interesting dream because right off the bat, the first thing that comes to mind is like you're shooting a movie. So
Yeah.
essentially, like creating a scenario,
Mm-hmm.
like a false fake scenario in a way, or like a fantasy, or however you would represent that aspect. But then, like, the the dogs coming through and being very threatening, but then also being reined in, the lack of communication to you and specifically Sidori, which feels like, I don't know, it feels odd, especially with like the attractiveness and the way that you carry yourself. Like, why would a security guard be telling Sidori, your small
Yeah,
child, that you're sexy? It felt very
it
off-putting
was
in a
weird.
way.
Yeah, I
But
mean, there
also,
was some other off-putting stuff that had like sexual stuff that happened early in the dream that I'll probably share that with you privately, but it was like it was a weird dream. I was just like, what the hell?
yeah,
Especially because it was like it was the dogs were running around in the whole crowd. Like it was
yeah,
just like you're letting them loose to see what's going to happen, you know. But there was like one in particular, and then this dream, it was like a bulldog, like a
hmm,
gray bulldog, and it was like so attracted to me, but attracted to me in the sense of like barking at me, like
yeah,
aggressive towards me, but then it would be reined in, and then it would
yeah.
come back, then it would be reined in. So I think it's really interesting, especially if I still consider, like oh, the dog is me, and I consider my feelings or just my thoughts even about am I going to say something, like, and just being angry where it's like I could really go in on you right now, on both of you, like the two people that I have in mind right now, but it's like it's just not going to be productive. So what
Yeah.
do I do? Like literally I've been like, what do I do? And so it's interesting, I'm seeing that back and forth with the dogs being like reined in.
And also, like, one of the things that I recognize within this dream space too is like I see you in everything. So like it's your movie, it's your life, it's you're directing your own life, but then you're also you're grabbing Sidori, which, you know, in a way feels like your inner child, like you're protecting your inner child from this anger and this aggression. But then there's this sense of protection that's coming up through these security guards and being able to rein the dogs in. And all of these aspects of yourself, I feel like, are coming through and kind of figuring out a dynamic to work through where everything can be expressed in the way that it needs to be.
Yeah.
So I just find that aspect, because immediately when you talked about the dream, the first thing I thought was every aspect of you showing through in this dream. And I
Especially
love,
like, again, it's like the different dogs. Cause I remember, I don't know if it was like, maybe it was the next stream, but then it was like Doberman Pinschers and like, labs. And it just like the dogs, I feel like it's so many different things. Like, because I've had so many like very deeply resonant or like very deeply like different meanings that resonated very deeply. And so I could see that with like the dogs, you know what I mean?
well,
Like,
yeah. And when you think about the different breeds, like, so when you think of a bulldog, bulldogs are short and stout and kind of
yeah,
like, to me, they're not really,
scary.
I don't think
Yeah.
they're very scary. They're more funny and
Yeah.
kind of silly and kind of weird and kind of like, I don't know, because when I think of bulldogs, I think of drool, like just like
Yeah.
that, like aspect, like it's like the duality of this like anger and aggression, but also this silliness coming through too. And it's just the way that you could break down, and even the reflection of how you feel about yourself on like that, you know, level of like, okay, you know, your mom's carrying herself in such a sexy way and this way that
Yeah.
it's so weird, it's so interesting the way that comes through.
Mm, yeah.
I also am just laughing because, like, why would a security guard talk to your daughter about you being sexy?
Right.
It's
I'm
just
just like,
so fun.
she
So
that age, like she was what, 5, 6, like her same age right now in the dream. So
yeah,
it was weird. And I'm like, also, I'm right here, so I can hear you. Like you
yeah.
talk right to me. So it was really interesting. But there's more. So do you want to go with your next ones? And just
Oh,
just
sure.
to give you an update of time, we are at 10:02.
Okay.
So yeah, well, maybe we take like 15 more minutes and then
Yeah.
we'll pull cards.
Yep. That
So we'll
sounds
see what
good to
we
me.
get from that. Okay.
So the next dream I had happened, it was the morning of 11/11. So it was at that threshold of 11/11, and it was a very quick dream. I was it was and it, I want to mention too, it was a black and white dream, which I don't think I've had many black and white dreams before. So it was a black and white dream, and I was sleeping on a bed with two other people in essentially a convenience store. And I was just kind of cuddled up, like I sleep on my side in fetal position. That's how I sleep. And that's how I was sleeping in this dream. And all of the sudden, this presence gained complete control of my body and was just shifting me upside down in the space that I was. And I woke myself up from the dream. And I was like, I don't want anything to do with that. That's intense. That's too much. And that was the dream.
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel like this dream was really important because I think that it reflected, especially that was a part. So I was going through this weird physical, whatever you would call it, where like I just really wanted, I didn't feel comfortable in my skin for a couple weeks. And it was intense and it was making me almost have like mental breakdowns because it was so intense. This dream to me represented the lack of control I felt in my own body at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And it, like I said, it was very brief, but like all of the sudden I was being, someone else was controlling my body. Someone else was moving me. And I woke up and I was like, I don't want anything to do with that. And I really feel like that was a reflection of what I was experiencing in the waking space.
Mm. Yeah, I remember you sharing that. And that made sense. Yeah. The avoidance. Yeah.
It was like the it was both power and avoidance. I was making a decision to not have to be in a situation where someone else was controlling me, but I
Mm-hmm.
was also being avoidant to the possible lesson that was coming through beyond
Yeah.
just not being in control of myself. So there was a duality to that, which makes sense with the Libra.
Yeah. I feel you.
Um, but the last dream I'm going to share, so that was very short. I just wanted to share that because it really, like, this cycle was weird. This cycle in the days essence was weird, and in the night essence was weird, and so much was coming through. So the last dream I'm going to share from this cycle is from Friday, November 14th.
Mm-hmm.
This is a little longer, but Urania's in it. So,
Oh yeah, we get to the mystical stuff. That's
yep.
perfect. My ending is mystical. Okay.
Yay. Okay, so we get into this mystical sense. Um, so this dream, I had traveled to the city and I was looking for someone who could help me because I was in a state where I could feel a presence following me. And this a little bit piggybacks off of the last dream of someone controlling my body, but I'm more separated from it at this point. So I'm in this tall New York City law firm. The building is, God, 20, 30 floors up. And I'm walking to this office space where I know that I can get help.
Mm-hmm.
There is a dark presence following me to the point where every hallway I go down, as I'm walking, the what's behind me, all the lights turn off and it feels heavier and heavier. I get to this law firm, and the law firm is essentially like on the outside to people who aren't involved in the magical space, it just seems like a law firm. But if you're involved in this magical space, you know that it's people who can help with defense against, you know, whatever um essentially negative magical aspects are coming through, presences and stuff like that. And I was waiting essentially in the dark because at that point I was just stationary. And as I had mentioned before, when I was walking, everything was turning off. So when I was stationary, I was just sitting in the dark, waiting for someone to help me. And all of the people who were a part of this organization, they either kind of like just put their nose up and walked away, or you could see the fear in their eyes of whatever I was like dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And after being rejected and turned down, I left and I walked through this open balcony with lots of plant life, and it was very crowded. And I was walking to essentially the carport, so I could get in my car and drive away. But as I was walking through this space, I had bumped into this guy, and he got very aggressive and very nasty, and to the point where he had spit on me and walked away. And I just kind of like, remembered where I was. I'm in my dream space. It's not real. I like got rid of the spit because it's not, I'm fine. So
Yeah.
I get to my car and I
Tempered
drive
your
away.
emotions. That's a perfect example of like, mastering lucidity where
Right.
you temper your emotions, like you balance it out. You're like, everything's cool. Like it's a dream, Yeah.
Right, exactly. And like again, I like got rid of the spit. I got rid of like I was cleansing my
Yeah.
aura in the space that I was in, acknowledging what was going on. So I get in my car and I leave the city and I'm driving along this cliffside over an ocean. And it feels like hours are passing. And finally, like there's not much traffic. Finally, I'm driving around this long bend and I drive past, it was like a forest green SUV, kind of beat up, probably like 2007 era SUV, like Ford or whatever. And I just kind of look over and I see that the person who's driving this vehicle, they have their hands on the wheel and they're driving like a normal person, but where their head should be is tons of flailing arms. Like just like, and
Yeah.
normally I'm sure that image would probably scare someone, but I'm like on a mission. I know what's going on. I know I'm in the dream space. And I kind of look at that. I'm like, that's weird. And like keep going.
Hmm.
Finally, I pull off onto this dugout, and there's a metaphysical shop, which is Urania's metaphysical shop. And I go in and I'm seated. Mary, you're actually in this. I don't know if you're still on, but you're in this dream too. So I walk into the metaphysical shop and Mary's sitting there and Urania is talking to a customer. So I walk around the shop and I'm looking at some stuff and then I sit down next to Mary and she's essentially like, "Oh, I have this hair like curler, or it's some kind of thing. It's shaped like a dumbbell." And she's like, "It didn't really work for me, but like I'm offering it up for free in case anybody is interested." And like she's like, "It didn't really do anything." And I was like, "I'm good." She's like, "I figured." And just like it was a funny moment because it was like a product that didn't work and we kind of laughed and it lightened the mood a bit until the person Urania was talking to had bought what they needed and left. And then I started talking to Urania about what was going on with me and how no one could help me. And just as I started like really going into what was going on, I woke up.
Mm.
So it was a very intense dream and there was a lot of aspects to it that stuck out to me and it was mystical and I did feel very powerful and I felt a lot of power from you and I felt a lot of power from Mary, but I also felt a lot of power from this dark presence that was following me.
Mm.
But it's interesting because the dark presence couldn't come into your metaphysical space.
That's interesting. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw in the Carl Jung perspective of like myself and Mary being a part of you, like in reflecting aspects of like how you feel about us, specifically in that situation, and like what that, so that might mean something of like what you're coming into an aspect that maybe you could connect with that can give you some guidance, especially like you saying that dark energy, that dark presence, you know like I don't know if that's something you need protection with, but you said it wasn't really like, it didn't feel bad, right?
It
Like,
was looming, it was uncomfortable, and I knew I needed help with it.
yeah, so I'm wondering, yeah, that's, oh yeah, so perfect, where it's like whatever I represent to you might be something that is helpful. Like it's reflecting something within you that's going to be helpful for you with whatever that is, which is
Right.
like to be continued probably.
Well, and I think that, when I think about our friendship, I do feel like you're a mirror for me in a way that allows me to harness my own power where
Mm-hmm.
I may not have felt that before. And like what I see of you is very powerful, very spiritual, very grounded, very in tune. And the fact that like you showing up in a dream space, not only just your physical sense, but a space of your own where nothing can break through, I feel like really represents how you are reflected in me as just a strong, supportive, powerful person. And
Mm,
like, of course I would come to you. No one else could help me. So
yeah.
of course I'm going to come to you. And like, with the comic relief that Mary brought, and like, you know, I have heard her crack jokes many times through our either our podcast or like sending stuff through Instagram, and like that coming through to be like a light airy essence in something that feels very dark, I loved that coming through. I loved it.
Yeah. I love that too. I see similarities in our dreams in the way I'm going to like the way my dream wrapped up, which I feel for both of us, it's like a to be continued,
Mm-hmm.
which is perfect because of that Scorpio energy where it's like now we're in the Scorpio lunar cycle. So we've gotten to a threshold in which like, and also there's some like darkness there because it's the unknown more than anything.
Oh yeah.
And we're a little bit like, we kind of get a sense of the vibe, but again, I feel like the dark energy, the dark presence is also reflecting that unknown, right? And the uncertain, not necessarily uncertainty, but I just feel like really the unknown, like we don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes not knowing is scary within itself or has like
Of
a
course.
different energy. And so that's perfect because now we're entering into the Scorpio lunar cycle. And so there is this like um energy of going in deeper. So now we've had the realization, we found kind of like the peace or the harmony, or we found some balance within these extreme dreams, but now we know there's more. And so that Scorpio new moon is opening the door to going deeper with that. Like, what is that shadow? Like, getting curious about that. Like, well, what is this presence? And I know the dream has already given you the tools and the support on how to go about interacting with whatever that is. And so my dream essentially kind of wrapped up in the same way, or yeah, this especially the recurring series. So I had this dream on Monday, which would have been November 17th. And essentially there was something going on in the first part of the dream. Like I was kind of like the past three dreams, which involved dogs, um have taken place around like my mother's house, but more so I want to say it was like the house I lived in when I was in high school, like middle school, high school. And which makes sense too because then the dream after the film one was I was ended up at a mall that I used to work at in high school, and I would always hang out at this mall, which is like right down the street from my house. And like of course all like the people I went to high school and everything would hang out at this mall, and that's kind of what happened in the dream too. But this is a dream after that. And essentially, there was like some event or something happening around my mother's neighborhood, around my childhood neighborhood. And then my friend and I, which is also a friend from high school, I don't have any contact with her now, but there's no bad blood or anything. But anyways, we both left the area, the event, to essentially just go. There was a nature trail. So we were like, let's go on this trail. It was really beautiful, the environment, because it was like once we left that space, um we got on the nature trail and it like really opened up, and there was like a lake that followed the trail, and it kind of felt like we were in a place like Ireland or Scotland or like in Europe, right, where the like it was like the rolling like hills and stuff like that, and like the old cobblestone stuff. Like I remember there was like a little bridge with like the arch, and it was made out of the cobblestone. And
Ooh.
so we're like walking and talking, and I remember specifically that I said to her, I was like, "Oh, you walk like me. This is great," because we were like hovering, where it was like we were kind of walking, but it was almost like a glide. And that was really significant, I feel, because in the very first dream that I had that involved dogs, and it was in that experience, it was hellhounds. And I felt that I had an astral projection experience. I was definitely lucid, and I was like hovering, and I was moving so fast I couldn't control my speed, and like I could barely control where I was going. But in this dream, it was like very like easeful, and it was like a slow glide. So anyways, we're moving along, there's little things on the path, but nothing crazy. And then at one point, and like throughout the travel, like throughout moving, or walking or gliding or whatever, like I had in my head, I don't think I said anything, but I think I kept looking back like, oh, we're going to need to go back. We need to get back. So anyways, we got to a point where it was probably at the end of the path. At least this is where I was like, okay, we should turn around, because we kind of stopped and there was this big gray wolf, like basically like a mystical energy, very fantastical. And it wasn't really like, it knew we were there. It wasn't aggressive towards me. I mean, it like acknowledged me in the sense of like there was almost this like telepathic connection where I knew it knew I was there and I knew it acknowledged me, but it was kind of doing the dog thing where it's like sniffing around and just doing its thing. And so like I was there and I was a little bit curious, but there was still that apprehension because like, just from this series of dreams. And I realized that I am like very conscious in my dreams and I have those moments. But I'm not like fully like lucid and conscious. And so there was the feeling of like, I remember the conscious awareness of like, oh, there's a canine in my dream. Where, like, how is this going to go? Like, is it going to try to attack me? And that it didn't. But I was like, we should probably turn around and go back. And so we turn around and go back. And then as we were going back, then I started to see different dogs. Like there was a Doberman Pinscher, there was probably a bulldog, there was almost probably like all the dogs that I've encountered. Like I was encountering these different dogs, right? And then we ended up like we were going back and there was some weird energy. Like I felt like it wanted to be aggressive, but it wasn't. Um, and then I like woke up. And so what I got from that, like that dream, or and I'll say too, like when I woke up, I, what happens whenever I wake up from a dream? Because this is like I tend to dream early in the morning, or like I would say between like 1 and 6 a.m. because I wake up really early because I got to take my daughter to school. I got to take her dad
Right.
to work. So I'm getting up at like 6:30 a.m. most of the time. So I will wake up like around 2 or 3 and I'll run through the dreams because I like, that's just what you do. And so when I run through the dreams and like with the previous dreams, that's when I would have anxiety. Like I would have like my heart would race and stuff. So I have to calm myself down. So I was doing this and I could feel myself wanting to go there, like my body wanting to have that response. But then I told myself because it felt so mystical with this, like it made me think of like Princess Mononoke, like how they're like, forest creatures are. And like, I mean, the wolf is kind of scary in that one, but like this one was big, but it wasn't like
Mm-hmm.
scary.
Right.
Um, and I was like, no, this was very spiritual. And I told myself, I was like, if this was a big panther, I would be so excited. Like, which has happened in my dreams before. If it was like, a group of like wild cats, like, because that's literally like my family. And I'm like, why am like, I felt like this spiritual presence. Why am I like, I got really curious about it and I was able to bypass having an anxiety attack. And so the point is, because I'm gonna wrap this up and I'm definitely curious to hear what you're saying. I got so many different meanings from these dog dreams that I'm not even gonna get into all of them because a part of it's connected to like I feel like my extraterrestrial connection with Syrian beings and I've been getting synchronicities about that like in my waking life. So along with the dog dreams, I've been having synchronicities with dogs in my waking life, like actual real dogs, and then just other things. So I think with this dream, though, I've seen the evolution of this fear of what the dogs represent to me. Like I don't fear dogs at all. I love dogs. So it's not about that. But there is like some anger and also some fear, and there's so many layers. But I see that the evolution now is taking this spiritual archetypal representation. And I feel like I felt like that wolf was like kind of like guarding their, like it was definitely a threshold. So
Right.
similar to your dream, it was like there's an invitation to like go there, to meet with that, to find
Yes.
more. And so that's what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to journal about it and set an intention to maybe meet with this wolf or like get curious about what is beyond where that wolf was, right? Because I felt like in other dreams that involved dogs, there was kind of like a block, right? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's what.
Wow. What a dream. And I have to say, the first thing that pops out to me is the representation of the wolf, because the other dogs that came through were essentially more modern breeds.
Oh, yeah.
Wolves are ancient.
Mm-hmm.
And this to me represented possibly a very ancient aspect of the self. And it could correlate with that like Syrian energy that you were talking about, that like other worldly energy coming through, but also just a very, very old aspect of the self. You know, maybe even past life
Mm-hmm.
type energy. But the fact that it was there and almost like you said, creating that threshold into something deeper. I'm so curious to see what comes through in
Yeah.
the dream space tonight. I'm so curious, especially with like this auspicious,
Yeah.
auspicious, like aspects of the Mercury Kazemi coming through and the new moon and all of this really intense, magical, deep depth of power. I'm so curious to see if tonight you're able to move past where that wolf is and to discover more about yourself than you have ever discovered before. Like I'm so excited. And the fact that
Yeah.
you were kind of like floating too, it felt lighter than the previous dreams. Like that floating aspect, like you're ready.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
I
to
love
be
this.
determined, this is like a to
To
be
be
continued
determined.
for the next dark moon dream reflections. So let's go ahead and we're gonna get our cards here and wrap this up with an oracle message. Do you already have yours?
Yeah, so I was shuffling a bit, and what came through, it threw
I'm
itself
gonna
out
share
was
this
this
one.
the woodpecker and log.
Oh wow. Look at that.
So I'll go ahead and read that while you shuffle. So the key points for this are natural rhythm and working with Gaia. Woodpeckers can generally be heard before they are seen, known as drummers of the forest because of their distinctive hammering against the trees. This is not designed to harm the trees, and this way of making themselves known often occurs in dead trees.
Mm.
Logs are not to be underestimated. They still have many uses, even though they are only a dead tree, used to fuel, heat, decorate, and build, to name just a few. Get in touch with the natural rhythm of the world, however feels right to you. Listen to the birds, walk barefoot in the grass, stand in the rain, and let it cleanse your spirit. Reconnect with Gaia, the nurturing divine earth that sustains us all, no matter how badly we treat her. Consider the beauty of nature and how you can contribute, how you can give back and take care of her. I love this. I love this because when I was shuffling it, you were telling me about your last dream. So
Oh,
while you were discussing the last dream of you walking through this forest and over this like bridge and everything, this popped through. So look, synchronicities are
that.
synchronicities. And honestly, I feel like right now, especially, is a great time to find grounding.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There is a lot of energy just moving and flowing through us. There's a lot of intensity. You know, Scorpio is that dark depth, really reaching into aspects of ourselves that we don't always reach into throughout the rest of the year. So, with that being said, right now is a really wonderful time to ground, be out in nature. You know, that is our natural place of being. You know, go with the flow of the way things are just naturally. I'm still stuck with the fact that I was just shuffling this and that popped out while you were telling me about your dream, telling us about your dream. But
And
it's true.
I feel too that like it's a reminder, it's a beautiful reminder about being present with nature because this part of at least where we are here in the United States, we are in late autumn moving into winter, in a few weeks. And I mean, it's cold, it's brisk, like everything is dying, you know. And I, when they said, when the interpretation mentioned like the dead log, and that really, you know, just finding the beauty in this season of the
Absolutely.
thing, and being resourceful with that energy, and like admiring the transformation cycle, admiring, you know, like the decay and how that can be supportive, and how that like how that is essentially compost for the next cycle. And so that's kind of what I'm taking from it too. Very Scorpio energy for sure.
Absolutely. And it's easy for Urania and I, and I'm saying this just from experience, but like this season is my season. And I
Hmm.
feel like the Halloween season, the season of the liminal, like it's probably your season too. I feel like we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Not everybody feels this way though.
Yeah, it's
So the
hard.
people where it's easy for us to like move in the natural cycle of death and the liminal space between death and life, some people this might be a more difficult
Yeah.
than it is for us. And so take this as wisdom through
Hmm.
it. There is beauty in decay. During this time of the liminal space, during this time where things are dying off, you know, appreciate things that you may not have before. Appreciate the cycle, appreciate the silence. Sit with yourself. Maybe sitting with yourself is not the most comfortable thing, but it
Yeah,
is necessary.
this is the
And
time. So,
it is the time for it. It's very easy for me to just be by myself in silence and
oh,
solitude.
oh my
But there's a
goodness.
lot of people where this is a very difficult season.
Yeah.
Difficult for me is the summer. Me and the sun are not friends. Me and the sun have our struggles. But the silence, the darkness, the night of the season, that is where I thrive. So it's easy for me. But again, sit with yourself, find grace, find happiness in the smallest crevices of this experience.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so the next oracle message, which is very Scorpio, it literally is Scorpio. So I'm using my moon oracle deck. I'm going to pin my screen so we can see it. Is sacrifice.
Ooh,
And I don't know if you can see the bottom, probably not because of the glare, but basically there is Scorpio. This is associated with Scorpio, and we have Pluto and Neptune as the planetary energy significant for this. So this is very interesting. Let me go to the guidebook here. I'll remove this. Okay, so the key phrase here is sacrifice or emotional extreme. The passion of Pluto and the compassion of Neptune taken together express the supreme quality of selfless action. This moon mansion denotes intense and extreme devotion to a subject in your care. The naked state of the woman in the image symbolizes honesty and the loss of everything. The flower is the last possession that is hers to give. It represents love. If this card is drawn, you are prepared to lose everything for the sake of a particular cause or another person. Integrity is paramount to you regarding this issue, and you will not be persuaded to change your mind.
wow.
So
That's
I don't even know what
intense.
to add to that. That's
That's
intense. I felt like a
intense.
little bit resistance to that.
I
Um,
actually feel a little resistance to that too. But honestly, the loss of everything is very, very representative of where we are right now because, again, the changing of the season, things dying, it is the loss of everything.
letting go, even where we are in this part of the moon phase, like we haven't reached that alignment of sun and moon. So we're still in the waning crescent part of the cycle.
Yeah.
And so that essentially is that surrender and letting go. And that's one of the main aspects that I focus on too with dreaming with the moon is like when you're in the waning crescent, it is the surrender and letting go and just letting everything that's happened over the past cycle, let it integrate, let it digest, and surrender to the divine, right? Because
Yeah.
you've had your realizations, You've taken your interpretation, you've taken action, and now it's the time to rest and just let it come to you and receive.
And
And
also surrender to yourself.
yeah,
All of the blockages, all of the resistance you may be feeling, you're about to embark on another threshold, but you just can't seem to unlock that door.
yeah,
Surrender to yourself. What is it that's been holding you back? What is it that has been frustrating you, upsetting you, angering you? What is it about yourself that feels chained to the last chapter of your life? Like, allow yourself to sacrifice to yourself and face the really dark depths that you need to during this time.
yeah, 100% on point. So, as I mentioned, this is going to be, I'm really excited because I feel that it's like, it is a to be continued. And I'm really excited to see what comes forth. And so, I mean, I don't have anything else. Do you have any last words or anything? Think,
Be gentle
yes,
during this cycle, be gentle, but also don't be resistant to the change that's necessary in your life.
yeah,
Change is hard, facing yourself is hard. But if you don't do the hard work, you're never going to evolve to who you truly are. You're never going to move on to that next level. You're never going to be who you truly can be. So, despite the difficulties that are to come, don't resist it. Move into it. Allow the flow to guide you to where you need to be
damn.
and have grace for yourself.
You've been dropping gems tonight. I love it. All right, everyone. Happy new moon, sweet dreams, all of the things. And we'll be back next week.
Sweet dreams.